And when you're identifying and when you're identifying this, it kind of helps you to, that that the kind of research you're kind of identifying is what is visible. The second one is what we call literature review. Now, the process is that you have identified a particular knowledge, and I have showed you that their personal, most times what used to serve as the bedrock for undergrad is what your personal experience that is outside, as it were. But in Nigeria, uh, your personal experience doesn't count. You'll be placed under one professor, and the professor give you a research to do. Nobody cares whether you like it or what or not. If it is not the same with yours, please let me know in the chat box. I want to know. I want to know in the chat box. I want to know in the chat box. Okay. Okay, I think Baka is saying that he was able to identify his own problem and he goes for the research. I think people in federal universities has that luxury, because I had a friend, okay, junior colleague rather, that was telling me that for his undergrad was the one that picked the supervisor by himself. But it doesn't happen that way in my school. You just put it to a one professor. It comes out as a list. It comes out as a list, and whoever the person is doing, that's what you do. Nobody cares about what you want to do or not. But for those of you that were able to pick, yeah, yeah, you are more on the safer path, because you'll be doing things you are kind of interested in. So I think that would be part of my take home, that so that will be able to help those of us. So literature review. Now, you already have this research problem, and two, aside from the research problem, can also comes from, I think I have a slide or two that discusses about, from curiosity. And this particular paper that is here, that we published in Frontiers of Oncology, came as a result of curiosity. I was at a conference in Lagos, Nigeria. We had white people all over the space, and we keep speaking. There were so much things around people of African ancestry, and our prostate cancer is killing us, killing us, killing us, and as it were. But interestingly, this prostate cancer is not killing the people over there, that they are Caucasians, Europeans, as it were. So I found it curious that I know that I'm interested in genetics, but what could be the external environmental factors that could contribute to that could contribute towards the aggressiveness of prostate cancer in blacks. So that was the aim I have in my idea. And that's what I redefined and defined to get this particular paper. Then eventually I had a collaborator and senior colleagues on the paper, and I had my friend together to work on it together. Then we eventually published it in a top journal, that is Frontiers in Oncology, one of the top journals in cancer biology. Now, so it is the work that you have done previously, and this work, literature review, this type of literature review that I did here is different from the one you do in your school, because this one is in two parts. You do a literature review, you pull out, you read different papers, try to bring out existing knowledge. Then what do? At the end of it, you will profile solutions. There's one of it we have in, it's also around cancer biology, but that one we are looking at more in another diverse population globally. So now you pull out these papers together, you read them, you digest them, you pull out the body of knowledge. Then from the body of knowledge, you will now profile what you think should be the next steps of research, or the next directions of research, as it were. So what similar work have then been done? What distinguish what you want to do from what you have done, and who or what this particular research will? So formulating research questions. So there is a clear difference between the research question and what we call hypothesis. So research question, now I've told you, is just like when you identify your research problem, you begin to ask several questions from it. And when you are able to talk around your research question, as it were, it's not very declarative like hypothesis. It's maybe very complemented with a few questions. And one particular thing around research question is that it must be able of being confirmed or refuted. We must be able to say, okay, what you said makes sense, but what you say, okay, doesn't make sense after our empirical evaluation. Now, when we're talking around hypothesis, this is that you have a research question and you want to use certain data to validate it. All of you will be able to witness that in your research, especially those of you that are around life science, and you will talk that around accept H naught and reject H naught. True or yes? Let me see if people's research are still around that. True or yes? True or yes? Okay. So yeah. So your hypothesis helps you to test your research question. So then you begin to put out a lot of you begin to put out a lot of factors that, okay, when do I accept H naught? When do I reject H naught? When this particular criteria meets this particular criteria, I accept the null hypothesis. When this particular criteria meets this particular criteria, I reject this particular hypothesis. So these are statistical ways, but these are ways by which you look at your data statistically to be able to infer reasonable conclusions to whatever you do. I want to speed up. I think I'm running out of time and still have a very long place to go. Okay. So now this is an example of research study. Now, for instance, somebody is working on determining and increasing physical activity level of health workers in Nigeria, a non-communicable disease intervention study. I believe somebody is not working around this year. So what are the research questions that can pull up to that particular TSC or that particular research work? Can workplace interventions improve or enhance physical activity? Physical activity level of a group of healthcare workers? Does enhanced physical activities at individual level transfer to improve weights? And so these are the type of research questions and questions that it were. So then the next thing that you'll be talking around is that what are the research hypotheses around this? Research hypothesis is that, okay, if workplace interventions will improve or enhance what the physical activity. Hello, am I out of time? Am I out of time? Okay.
No, sir.
I think there's an interruption. Sorry, you may go on.
Okay, so the physical level of a group. So now in this case, you begin to know that when should we accept H naught, when should we reject H naught, and the enhanced physical activity. When we have an enhanced level of physical activity or individual level, will it improve the weight status? In this case, should we accept H naught or do what? Reject H naught. Then, after you have been able to know your hypothesis, you'll now be able to design a very good research study. You'll be able to develop your research in details. You'll be able to know the relevant instruments. If you are using questionnaires, for those in social sciences, your work is 100% questionnaires. For those in life sciences, your work can be a mixture of questionnaire and experimental data. And this will give different types of research that we're talking about later. Then you'll be able to identify the specific type of variables you want to measure. Is it dependent variable? Will it be a dependent variable? Will it be an independent variable? So in this way, you'll be able to clear out and make out that your research is feasible and it is reproducible. Once your study design is how do you put it, is well stated out, then you will be able to know that is this particular research visible and is it reproducible. So in some cases, where human, animal, and environment in specific cases are required to be used by your research, there have to be ethical considerations. For instance, One of the reasons why quite a number of you may not know of this is that most universities has an ethics body that you are capable of doing your research under a university and you don't have to go. But if you are in certain research institutions, independent research institutions, there are some studies you want to do that you must to receive approvals from relevant ethics body, because you can't just be killing animals, you can't just be using humans for research. Some particular bodies has to vet that what you are doing actually made sense and will not pose more harm to the people you are using them for. So now the type of variables, independence, this is why I just want to put more context in this. Is talking around independence and dependent variable. That is, the dependent variable will be depending on the independent variable. And what happens is that independent variables are variables that are usually manipulated. Okay, that is, treatment is administered. For instance, if you are giving, in my own case of undergraduate study, we're giving tramadol at different, okay, at the same concentration, I think based on weight, if I could still remember very well, based on weight, at certain time of the day to them. So, and every other thing we are getting, all the results we get was predetermined by that factor based on their weight, based on the time we give to it, and other factors being put into place. So if your research is large, okay, most cases you guys will not be able to talk more around this. For large type of research, you talk around, you have to do a pilot test so that you don't burn so much money. Training data collectors, you guys do all the work. If you're an undergraduate, you're PhD student, you do everything by yourself. So you have to know the difference between, if it is a field work, that is, you go into the field to take questionnaires. Social sciences do that. Then if it's laboratory, you enter the lab and you enjoy your lab work, as it were. So after you know these your variables, you now begin to examine what did your result shows, what the type of your result shows, the result that are obtainable. So is your result actually quantitative? If your result is quantitative, most times the results you do from laboratory works are usually quantitative, because you get lab works, you get them in figures and can easily plot graphs, plot different type of graphs, bar charts, bar everything, use your statistical analysis and apply to them, as it were. But if it is qualitative, in most cases, where do we get them? They will get them from structured interviews and um and what was it called, questionnaires. Some questionnaires, they will give you a room for you to express yourself. So in that case, it is very hard. For instance, I ask you a question, how are you feeling today? I asked about 1,000 people, how are you feeling today? We would have various of answers. We would have somebody who says, I'm feeling fine. Okay, let me just take this while I continue, so that we'll just use that to get people engaged. Now, the question is, my research questionnaire is that I want to check the people's feeling in PsyCon community. So one of the very first question I'm asking is that, how are you feeling today? Yeah, how are you feeling? I mean today, not what happened to you last week or something. How are you feeling today? You happy? You sad? Let's know. So you begin to apply different descriptors. I'll be in the chat box. So I'll be in the chat box to talk around. I'll be in the chat box. Now, where's my chat box? Yeah, how are you feeling today, so that you will know? Okay, somebody said great, not so well. Oh, I'm so sorry about that, Victor. So tell me, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? Good. Fine. This fine is a common Nigerian word. I don't like it. You should be able to tell us the specifics. We use fine to cover a lot of things. Yeah, a little bit stressed. Yeah, great. Don't worry. Just after this workshop, just take time to relax. Somebody said it's feeling scientific, interesting. I do hope you're enjoying the section. Okay, so now, away from that is now, when you take a look at this, you begin to discover that each person has what they feel. Good is not the same thing as great. Okay, great is not the same thing as a little bit stressed out. So if you interview around 1,000 people, If you have about 1,000 people, you have different 1,000 responses. And that way, you have to look for a way to classify them in order to so that the results will make sense. I hope that so those are qualitative data. So now one of the reasons why we do expect people to know to read literature, to do literature review, extensive literature review, is that it will help in your discussion. You'll be able to know where the preceding work stopped. You'll be able to know the certain data or the certain conclusions to refute. For instance, if your research is you are trying to look at the population in Akure, for instance, Akure population, let's say they are more predisposed, or the Ondo State population are more predisposed towards giving, you know, giving birth to twins. Yeah, I know that. I stay in Ondo State for a while, so I know that Ondo State people give birth to twins a lot. But we can say it is not factual because there's no data showcasing it. So you begin to take data, take data, take data with the hope that you want to do what? No, if Ondo State data actually have more twins per family region, then what do you now have to do to validate your data? You have to have some control data set that you're comparing it with. Let's say you want to compare it with Lagos. Let's say you want to compare it with its neighboring Ekiti. So there are certain things that have to come to place. One, demography. Let's say you want to consider the type of food they eat. You want to consider to the level of the stress they are exposed to. You want to compare it with, the population per space and as it were. Then at the end, you now find out that, wow, this is not eventually true. According to what I thought before, it is actually the people of Lagos that had more twins, as it were. So this and this will be able to give you recommendations from your data, and from there you will know the further steps to take in your research. So now there's one particular saying in research that it's very, very dangerous, but I don't want you to take it. But it's a sad truth. They call it, it's either you publish or you perish. And I know that for undergrad, it doesn't go towards us because what the number of us want to finish school, we don't even understand what publishing means. Only a few people like Sharif and me then were able to be exposed to something like publication as it were, and they were trying to, okay, let me see if I can get a publication before I finish school. Anyway, but one major thing publication does is that you can do all the great research in your lab, you can have all these great ideas. If you don't put it out there and your name is attributed to it, you have done nothing. And a very good way for you as an undergraduate research that people will advise is that do your undergraduate research there and submit it to the department. So one thing that is part of my take-home message, that if you're an undergraduate, I think somebody's speaking to me. Okay. Yeah. So
it was
I think okay, sorry. So I think if an undergraduate, so when you submit this, it starts as a record in your department library. If your school is a very good school, or they do it, so there's what we call this online departmental thesis, whereby thesis that whereby you submit your hard copy, and the school helps you to upload the soft copy online. Is the way they design it, and they help you to upload your soft copy online. So in the future, you can always reference to it. I think I've been privy to see some of my professors that studied outside their thesis online before, and wow, this is great. So even if without publishing, you know that work is forever attributed to them. And for other people that does that, they could also. But I know that in most schools in Nigeria, something of such does not happen. So that's one of the things that will lead to my take home. So, and I'll also be open the ground for us to have. I want us to really have an heart-to-heart discussion. So I'll be skipping quite a number of this. I'll be skipping quite a number of this. Yeah, I'll be skipping the types of research because our time is fast spent, and we'll come straight to the rules of research. Why do people actually do research? All right. Now, the reason why people do research is one, to advance knowledge, two, to increase the understanding of the various type of phenomena, the various types of incidents that happen, to provide solutions to problem, for the improvement of practices, and to the development of the overall, to bring about overall development and progress, as it were. So we're trying to do research so that we increase our knowledge, to understand things the more, to provide solutions to problem, to improve various practices, as it were, as how we do things, and to bring around the global increment in the developmental space. Now, this will be a bit more relatable. So, what is the status of research in developing countries? I think I think that we should not be discussing much around this, as we are upcoming researchers, but you should know that all this is quite relatable to you, that there are no research fundings. And I know that if not 70 to 80%, if not 100% of you guys, if not 100%, if a large number of you guys have to sponsor your undergraduate research by yourself, which not thought to be so. In outside countries, people join professors' lab that receive grants in order to do the undergraduate research, and they end up doing, scientific research. I don't want to give you instances as it were, but as it were. So let's just skip about these problems. We know we have it. We have a whole lot of problems that regards research in developing countries, in which, if I say we should start stating, or should base a discussion around it, it will not be a very good thing for us, especially as young ones. But for you to know that there is a huge problem of research, and there's a huge problem for researchers and research in Nigeria, especially for and other developing countries. So that's where we tend to come in to kind of do things by ourselves. Now, why I'm trying to talk about problem identification in research, is that whether we like it or not, I'm tightening up my talk now, that will be leading to what is it called? My take home messages for us, and I'll open the floor for question and answer before we can go. All right. What I'm trying to see in research, um, I would say something one of my boss told me some time ago. He said research can be profitable, research may not be profitable. Now, if I ask you to name some professors in Nigeria now, like the professors that are not from your school in Nigeria, the most names that will come from your head, if you are somebody in the research space, are the names of professors that have been able to attract funding, do stuffs, and where, for instance, I know a professor in FUTA, I think it's in biochemistry. He has been able to attract substantial fund. What's his name? Yeah, he's working around nutrition. Can somebody help me mention his name there? What's his name? Let me see if somebody knows his name. If his name comes up, I would. Yeah, Professor Hobble. Yeah, good. Now, I'm not a FUTA student, but I know Professor Hobble. Professor Hobble works around nutrition and food in biochemistry department, and is able to attract substantial funding. So now, why am I trying to say this? As young researchers, you may not be able to choose where your undergraduate research will lie, but in furtherance, you know what you can do. You should be able to identify the type of research you want to stick to. Your undergraduate should not be totally be the closing factor for you. So you have to be able to know how to look for the type of research problem you want to focus in. And necessarily, it doesn't have to be a very big thing, but you should know that this something can, as small as we have been able to, via this research, we have been able to, do some things for ourselves and pull ourselves better on the global scale. So and this can comes in various ways. Now, the various ways is this: that how do I identify the kind of problem I want to solve? One is that there is an unsatisfactory state of an affair. For instance, if you discover that For instance, let's say for me now, I'm interested in cancer biology, and I know that the cancer health is not even talked about in Nigeria as it were. And this is giving a concern. The question I ask myself is that, don't we have people who are suffering from cancer in Nigeria? And generally, the only major funding coming to Africa is coming around infectious disease, as it were. And the reason is that the whites are majorly funding this because it's a disease that can be easily taken to them. So, but cancer, only a few type of cancers can be transferred, and the chances of even transferring are very, very slim. So you will know that, okay, because you're not satisfied with this, let's say I want to venture into cancer biology, and I'm not saying you should go and venture into cancer biology because of that. There are a lot of things to put into consideration. You have studied over time and discovered there is a particular unanswered questions. You can I further into this to discover this? You have checked literatures, or from your perspective, there's a missing link. There is an imbalance. That is, for instance, I know about three professors now, as it were. They are doing the same thing, but in different sphere. What are they shouting about? They are shouting that there should be an increased global population of African genomics in the database. Professor Rotimi is shouting it around cancer. Professor Shegun Fatumo, all these professors are international professors and they are not Nigerian based, as it were. Professor Fatumo is shouting it around cardiovascular and kidney, while Professor Tangod is shouting it around biodiversity. Similar thing, but in different fields. And what are they doing? They want that they should be balanced, because they notice that the imbalance in this is creating, those people are using the data they have to create drugs from us to treat us, while it's not giving the sufficient stuff, as it were. So how would you be able to identify these? These are the sources: your literature, theory, personal experience. Yeah, personal experience, the experiences of people. The experiences of people that experience. It might not even be your own personal. It can be experiences of of your neighbor, or of your friend. For instance, Professor Tomori. Professor Tomori is a global professor around infectious disease, and he worked with WHO severally, and he worked around viruses. When polio was when he was telling his story, you know what's pathetic about his story? He said his friend had polio and was unable to continue his education, as it were. And I think as at 90, he was still sharing that same story. And with that particular story, do you know the kind of funds he has been able to attract? You know the kind of work he has been able to do. Currently now he's on advisory boards for many institutions globally. Professor Shegun Fatuma, I'm just trying to share an experience. Professor Shegun Fatuma is working around GWAS, as it were, but I think he said one of his child died from is it sickle cell, as it were? Is it sickle cell or something around that nature? Not to be specific, but one of his child has an ailment and died, and that's one of the things that prompted him to do research in that area. So, our previous research report, you can read the report and be so passionate around it and be like, see, you have to solve this problem, as it were. Now, this is where the next two slides is where I'll be trying to wrap up my discussion. Okay, I think I have just a minute, as it were, to wrap up my discussion and to leave room for questions, so that I'll be able to kind of answer if I can, and if I can't, I'll try to get back to the person. Interesting. So take home message. Now this take home message will be in two parts. I understand that we have two different categories of people: those who have done research before, undergraduate research, and those who are just doing. Okay, maybe we can have the third group, are those who just really want to venture into. So if you have the chance, okay, maybe your school does not made the rule that, okay, everybody just gonna put you under professor. Choose something you are passionate or interested about. Choose something you want to do on the long term. Number two is that before you choose that, try to conduct a thorough background research. This thing that I want to do, is it profitable? Am I interested? There should be a kind of a personal assessment towards it, that I want to do research. Fine, great. Everybody is doing research. What am I interested in? And is it a kind of a short-term interest? Do I want to use that particular research to switch? Or maybe, let's say, for instance, I want to do cancer research, I want to do genomics of cancer. But in my institution, there's no cancer research. What other things can I do around biomedics that would enable a quick switch for me? Then, as you move on, as you are doing this, you'll be able to develop a clear research question and objectives that is smart. We don't have enough time. It's not very much smart. A research question should be smart. And what do we mean by smart? It should be specific, it should be measurable, it should be well articulated, and it should be time bound. All right. So it should be smart, it should be realistic, because not all questions you can solve. For instance, if you are developing a research question that you want to, let's say, characterize monkeypox transmission dynamics in African population, and to develop countermeasures, make a countermeasures against them. You cannot do that kind of research as an undergraduate. For it's a research, even for the characterization part alone. Somebody is doing that for his PhD work. So you should know that it is realistic, but it's not time bound. So whatever you want to do, it must be time bound and it must be specific. So one of the reasons why my undergraduate project was kind of long and somehow a bit thick was because we had a strike in between. So my professor just keep increasing what we want to do. And at the end, we did something so bulky and we had to start writing. At a point, we were even confused around what we are doing as it were. Then research is very boring, can be very boring. So you should not hesitate to seek guidance, ask questions. Your supervisors, they are human beings. They may not be able to give you all the enough time, but you can ask your peers. Some way, somehow, some of them have, a little hedge, as it were. Some of them are able to understand scientific concepts more easily than you. Don't keep your mouth shut. Ask them, bros, how are we going around this? So you should be able to do that. You should seek support where needed. Ask for support, ask questions, seek guidance. If you have a distant mentor that you can talk to around your research, at whatever level, please do reach out. Now, this is one of the greatest challenges you face as an undergraduate. In my own school, for instance, your research will span from your first semester to your second semester. And in between, you also do your seminar. And your seminar is like you do a presentation and you develop a literature review, a well standard literature review that is publishable in between. And that's in 500 level, you still be taking quiz, taking tests, taking exams as it were. And in my own case, I even had to do like 2 defense as it were. So you will discover that time in your 500 level or in your 400 level as it were will be you will battle with time, and some of you even have extracurriculars. That is, you're a church guy, you're a monks guy. There are more extracurricular activities. You're involved in different organizations and initiatives there and there. There are more activities for you. So you must be able. One of the ways you'll be able to manage your time effectively is that by staying organized. Now, let me give you a quick icebreaker. One of the things that affected me was that then I was doing my research. I didn't have a system. So at that time, I had to get it. I think when I started, I didn't have a system. So I was borrowing a system. And interestingly, during the period, I think it was during my seminar, it crashed. The system crashed. I've developed chapter one and a bit of chapter two. Man, and I've even informed my supervisor there. The system crashed, and the only place I have it was that place. Bro, it disappeared. I had to start again. You know what we call BA, begin again. Sad story. So if you know you're in that kind of case, see, everybody has their story as regards that. What you have to do is that now we are now in a more global world. We are now in a more global world. Work on Google Space. You have over 15 gig you have around 15 gig in your Gmail or so. Work around that. Is just only one or two a Google Doc notes you will open to be typing, and it will only consume a little bit of your data, but it will be better than starting your work again and again. And that way it is more safe. And if you're not too convenient with that, you can keep saving it as draft on your email, send it to multiple people, trusted people as it were, so that you'll be able to keep your work, so that your story will not be story that touched the heart. Imagine somebody finishing your work close to 500, close to final submission, and your system crashed. or some, God forbid, or something happened, it was stolen or something like that, and you can't see the work again. You know you are starting all over. And I don't know what your school policies will be around that. Yeah, this one, for these ones, 8 and 9 is more for those who are trying to publish, and they are doing their undergraduate work to, get it published. Maybe they have a supervisor who's interested in them and wants to get their work published. So most of the decisions in Nigeria, as it will be around that. Maybe and the supervisor will be the one to pick the journal for you. And I believe that as a supervisor, you will not want to pick a predictory journal. But if you are the one picking, try to ensure it's not necessarily should be in Nature. It's not necessarily should be in Frontiers, like some of us that we are looking for big journals to publish. You can start with but ensure that it's not predictory. Identifying predictory journals, as it were, it's another discussion for another day. But you can ask your supervisors, your mentors to guide you, to help them look into the kind of journal you want to publish and to ensure that it's not predatory. This is a question. Now, this now is a very, very interesting one. Maintaining academic integrity and ethics. How is this? In undergraduate research in Nigeria is usually flawed. That is, there are not quite a number of instruments for you to carry out your research, and that is like the gold standard in most institutions, as it were. So when your supervisor is not trying to maintain academic integrity, as it were, they were asking you that, okay, we do this work, we do this work, we do this work. Then they get to a stage, thank God for research, and they just falsify data, as it were. I remember I was looking at one of the colleagues' final reports then, as she was submitting, and I saw the data so perfect. All the graphs were just like there were no outliers. The graphs were just a single straight line. And I asked that which supervisor this. He said, supervisor just what he just smiled and he just said, she go and do it, because the supervisor was really frustrated too. They got something so perfect. We know that some way. And I asked her, how do you do it? He said, when I was tired, I just had to, use my head to figure it out. And somebody said I did it first, and when I do it, when somebody did it too, it was also the same. So those kind of research, there are no integrity and ethics. So as we go, so I would like you that you celebrate your small victories and stay positive. Your work may be boring, may not be monotonous. You may not even like the type of research you're doing, just like what's happened to me. But enjoy the mist, because your undergraduate research, as it were, should give you two things. Do I have it here? Okay, I didn't. Should make you learn two things. Number one is that you should value the process over the results. That is a process of showing up. It's just like you're commissioned with a great project in your work. So you know that it involves a lot of showing up, a lot of doing repeated activities which may be monotonous and you may not like. And as it were, not all the type of your okay, as it were, not all the type of the research that you are doing, not all the type of the job you will get. For those of you in the outside world, you know that not all the job you will get is what you will like. Even if you like the job prescription, there will be a part of that job that will stress the hell out of you and you are not interested in. So that's one of the things it would teach you, that there can be a continuous learning. There will still be a piece of redoing and redoing and redoing. And so if you're an undergraduate and your work is not getting published, I want to say this. And my advice for you is that once you are done with your research, people don't take it serious. You can create a small short blog post. Nobody will crucify you for this, to tell, or even if it is a LinkedIn post, to put yourself out there that, okay, I did this, I did during my time, but I think during the process I talked around it, but I didn't eventually complete that story. All right. So, but it's a good one. You create a kind of short blog post, because for most undergraduates, your work might not get being published. That is, just end up your huge money will just end on one professor's table. And if he likes, he publish. If he like, he doesn't publish. And with everything that we are talking around, please, this is not giving you a room for you to go and decide to go and publish your work without your supervisor's consent. It is unethical. Under no circumstance should that idea come to your head. Yeah, no matter how terrible the man is, it is what very, 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 very unethical. So, but what you can do is that you understand the results. You have done a literature search. You can create a small blog post. You can write on LinkedIn around it. You can write on Twitter around it. And as it's where you are learning the process of science communication, you are learning the process of speaking to people around science and also communicating your research to the outside world for global impact as it's where. So these are some of my affiliated institutions. And uh, thank you so much for giving me this privilege. Thanks to Sherifuddin for inviting me, although there's a whole lot of story around my presentation. The reason why some of my slides cannot be released is because it's not, this is not my normal slides. Sheriff knows my normal slide. I just had to put this together at night in conjunction with a friend. And if Daniel, in the future, you are seeing this, thank you so much for the help with this slide. Thank you, Sherifuddin, for inviting me. And special thanks to Science Coon, if I could, yeah, for giving me the privilege to come and speak to you guys. Thank you so much. I love you all. So I'll be open to take questions, and I think I've exhausted over 10 minutes out of your time. Of the next section.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Shehu. That was a fully packed section, I must say. And I believe that it has already given us a strong foundation for the rest of the workshop. Thank you very much. So I wouldn't want to do a kind of rundown of the section again because our time is fast spent and we ought to have started the second session by now. So thank you very much once again, sir. So I think we can entertain, let's say, 1 or 2 questions if there are questions from this section. So if you have any question, you may just signify or just put it inside the chat. We'll just read it out. Hello, someone speaking? Barka Abbas? Oh, sorry. Okay. Questions for Mr. Sheung Olufemi? Oh, we are so glad to know that. Oh, people, I can see people are dropping their names in the chat. Well, the link to the attendance will be shared in the chat. We'll drop in the chat for people to fill. And I remember I told you that it's going to be towards the end of this session. So for today and tomorrow. So towards the end of the second session, we're going to have a link to the attendance in the chat. It will be dropped in the chat. Okay, so I guess there are no questions for Mr. Sheung. All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Sheung, once again. We are so glad to have you. And thanks for giving us a fundamental knowledge, even if in fact, I think it's more than fundamental, actually. Introduction about scientific research, what we need to have, what it takes to carry out a successful scientific research. You made us know the importance of having a smart research idea, one which is specific, one which is measurable, one which is well articulated, and one that is also relevant. And okay, what's that? Realistic, because we have so many people like embarking on a research that's not really like realistic, considering the circumstances that they have, and even to time bound. So the essence of having a smart research idea is very important. Thank you very much once again. So we have someone asking about publishing or you may go ahead, sir.
Okay. I think I saw the question that around publishing your work, and I want to ask, at what level is this person? What level? Because the level determines.
Sorry, sir. Before you proceed, sir. I don't know if it is proper for me to say that the last session in this workshop is going to be about publishing a scientific research. So I don't think it's within the scope of this particular session that we just concluded to look into publishing a research work. So if you can just pen the questions this particular question for the last session is going to be about publishing.
Yeah, great.
What do you say,
Yeah,
Mr. Shaw?
great. Because for me, the question I want to
All
ask
right.
was, I would like to ask another question, that at what level, because the level of the person in terms of research determines how you can go around your research publishing. There are ethics to these things. We don't just do them anyhow. And the reason is that you can do them anyhow, but you can do them as you wish. But let ethics guide, because the people you do anyhow to today, you will still know them tomorrow. Yeah, so I think that would be my
Thank you.
yeah. So yeah,
Thank you very much.
Oh, also in practicing academic integrity, most of the things we include in our work writing be our original thoughts? No. The answer is no. Even the matter of fact that your research work, 80% of it, somebody has said it. That is the reason why we have referencing. What am I saying? It even 90%, somebody has said it. Okay, it's only a very few aspects that will be your own original thoughts as regards the research. So practicing academic integrity, one of the core values is that you reference, that is, you attribute whosoever said something to that. For instance, let me give you an instance. When you're writing your introduction now, I'm writing my introduction, and one of my favorite opening line is that, according to Globalcan, about 1.1 people in Africa are suffering from, let's say, cancer. So now that particular phrase was not my original thought. Globalcan did a research and they discovered that about 1.1 people in Africa has what? Cancer, and around 700,000 of them had different type of this cancer. So that particular research frame that I want to use to justify my further saying has been referenced to them. Do you get that? So when you're trying to practice academic integrity, it is academic thief or stealing. Let me use the word academic stealing to say that everything you will do in your research is how should I put it? Is your thought. No. Even around 80% of it will not be your thought. But if eventually see a research that is majorly about people's thoughts, their own individual thoughts, it's usually not more than around one or two. They usually come as a result of short communication, as it were, a page, letter to the editor, a page with very few references. Even in those ones, there's still usually references. So when you're practicing academic integrity, referencing and right attribution, because plagiarism is a criminal offense in the academic space. Plagiarism is the greatest criminal offense because people believe that you're stealing their work and you're not attributing it to it. So your academic integrity does not mean that you have to. Yeah. Somebody has a question. I'm taking.
Thank you very much, sir, for that response.
I think somebody's raising up their hand.
You have another question?
Yeah, Rebecca.
Oh, Rebecca. Okay. All right, please, you can proceed with your question, Rebecca. Let's just have the second question from you. Then we wrap up this session.
Good evening, everyone.
Yeah, good evening. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm okay. Thanks for this research. I don't know what to call it, but it's actually intriguing. Thank you so much. All right, so my question is, how do we maximize exhausting journals for research and probably our write-up? Like, you have a lot of journals you want to look into, most times we get to, let's say, our write-ups, we get them from the journals, but then there are times that they get too much, like you don't know how to go about it. So my question basically is, how do you maximize exhausting those journals, to put them into one single something, into a single write-up and everything?
Okay, great. Yeah, I've answered this in a very easy way. There in exhausting, the truth is, for every text you want to go into now, there are millions of journals around it, and that you can't read everything. Okay, not journals, articles, published articles around it. And the truth is that you can't read everything around a particular space. So this is one of the things we do. For instance, you have a research question: prevalence of cancer, what's it called? prevalence of cervical cancer in what's it called? In Southwest Nigeria? That's your research question. Now, how do you do this? How do you do this? So the best way to go around this, if you put this on Google, you might see close to 10,000 papers, and you can't begin to read though. But there is a way in which we do what we call database query, that the numbers of the articles it will come for you will be quite easy. So you search the question, you search them based on certain keywords. Now, this, if you put it generally, you'll be seeing quite a number of unrelated texts, and they are journals. Sorry, there are certain databases that are more specific to a field. For instance, if you are in engineering, you know that IEEE is more specific to engineering. Okay, so if you go search there, one of the things you'll be seeing, there will be words around engineer. If you are a biomedics, PubMed is a very good one for you. Google Scholar, there's this Web of Science and Scopus, but those ones are still more, there's still a lot of paywalls around it. But if you're able to use PubMed and Google Scholar effectively, even PubMed alone, you'll be able to get enough text. And two, another thing is that in the world of research, I think they used to count what we say 5 years backward or so. 5, some will say 10 years, depending on the kind of literature you do. So we believe that knowledge is more recent. So let's say that, okay, for this part, you discover that you are having a close to 1,000 texts. For current 1,000 texts, you can say, okay, I'm considering only papers that are published between the space of 2020 or 2019 or 2018 to this forward. You get?
Mr. Shimsa, please, I would appreciate if you can. Okay, are you done with the response, sir?
Okay, what do you say?
I'm just asking if you can just help us to wrap up the response, sir, so that we can.
Yeah, I'm done. So that's it. Then once you have all those ones, then you would be able to, let's say, look at what's it called? Then once you have been able to that one will have automatically screened out the lots. Then for that screen is that you just read the abstract. You don't need to read everything. The abstract is 250 or 300 words that summarize what the entire research is. Then from there, you can pick it up and go alongside with your research. So that's a very good way.
All right, sir. Thank you very much. I hope that answers your question, Rebecca. Actually, more on this will come in subsequent sessions, hopefully. Yeah, thank you very much, Rebecca. Thank you very much. Also, we appreciate you, sir, once again, Mr. Shemulufemi. We are so glad to have you amidst us, and we are grateful for that amazing session. Thank you, sir. All right. And please enjoy the rest of your day, sir. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'll be dropping off. I have got other things to do. Thank you so much. As much as I would love to stay. Yeah.
You understand, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.